sports needs characters. It needs those people that get you talking, like from the back page. We had the likes of Mourinho, you had the likes of saying your Henrys and feel like that. You had the people, we've got Chelsea, Arsenal, all these different clubs. Sports needs those kind of people that to go beyond the means of off the pitch, and it's when he goes, it's going to be a loss.
It's our 100th episode, and we thought we were going to be having fun, celebrating all that's been happening in football, talking about our clubs, our love for our clubs, the history, all of that good stuff. But something really important has come up, and it's caused us to take the time now to pause and reflect on all they have done in their time in charge at one great club. And I'm talking, of course, about Jurgen Klopp and the shock decision which he announced last week about his intentions to leave Liverpool at the end of this season. Seismic news. We've had the reaction from the managers, but we're going to share our thoughts on Jurgen Klopp, his legacy at Liverpool, and what's likely to happen next. This is episode 100 of One Kick from Glory, and we've got all the guys here today. We've got Craig, we've got Matthew,
yes,
and we've got Markus joining us as well.
Hey.
This is going to be fun, exciting, and a little bit emotional, but we're going to start off right at the beginning in relation to last week and the reactions and news. I'm going to start with you, Markus. Like, when that notification came through, in the good old days, we used to have CFAX and teletext, but obviously we get the little dings on our phones now from X, formerly known as Twitter. But when you got the news, Mark, that Jurgen was stepping away, how did you feel?
Honestly, when it first came through, man, I was going through all sorts of stages of grief. Like, first stage of grief, denial, came through when I was at work, and my boss was like, hey, have you seen this? And I was like, nah, it's a joke. It's not real. It's not true. I don't believe it. He goes, but it's on someone's TV on Sky Sports News. I'm like, they're fabricating it. They're making it up. Like, it's not happening. Like, they've stuck something over their TV. I don't believe you. And then, like, my phone just came flooding in with all the messages and all the notifications, and I was like, oh crap, like, he actually is leaving. And yeah, obviously, once I had wiped away the tears, and tried to pull myself together about 7 or 8 hours later, I kind of finally was able to start to develop some of my thoughts, which I will try to share tonight. But yeah, obviously devastating news as a Liverpool fan, and very difficult to hear. I think we all knew it was coming, but didn't expect it to be coming as quickly as it came. And yeah, I think my office went into mourning. The Liverpool fans among us, we didn't really know what to do for the rest of the workday. So yeah, I'm still finally a week later here, just kind of gathering some of my thoughts, and in preparation for the pod tonight, kind of give me the ability to kind of think some things through and be able to get some things down on paper, but it really does feel kind of like the loss of a loved one, really, so there we go.
It definitely was a very surprising news. I mean, Friday on X was quite interesting because the general footballing world was shocked. And then on top of that, you had the sort of response from Liverpool fans, and you had the rival fans who thought they could get one up and laugh at the situation. And it led to some very tense and tetchy exchanges. In fact, one Liverpool fan said, look, when Arsene left Arsenal, I wasn't giving you lot smoke, but I see you faces, yeah, let's just be respectful. But I guess on that note, Craig, when you got that news and you heard that Jurgen was stepping away, how did you feel?
It was a massive shock because he's been there for 9 years. He's done an amazing job, more than that, it's an exceptional job at Liverpool. Transformed the club from not winning any trophies for a long time, won the Premier League after 30 years, was the big one for them. Obviously, they won the Champions League, but I think winning the league was the biggest one because over 38 games, and they never won the league since 1990. So for him to do that and break that record was a good thing. He was unlucky a couple of seasons as well. He could have won 3 or 4 titles. Only for that great Man City team. One season they went 98 points. Any other season they win the league at that point point advantage. He rebuilt the squad three or four times. Got the squad that he first started with. He had Sturridge, he had Lovren, he had Nene. So he kind of changed it. Over the years. He got better players. He bought Van Dijk. He bought the Alissons of this world, the Mo Salahs. He had the Sadio Manes. He had some good players. He had Firmino as well. He had who else? Henderson. So and then in the summer he rebuilt the squad again. It's his fourth squad now. He brought in like Gavin Birch. He brought in Sabosloy. He brought in McAllister. So he brought in some good players. He even gave Trent an opportunity in the first team as well. People don't realise how good he did with working with Trent, academy player. And he's done well with a lot of academy players that come through this season as well, like Bradley. So he's brought in some good young players coming through. So I think he's done a great job. I think Liverpool definitely miss him when he's gone. They'll definitely miss him.
Yeah. No, I agree on that note. And I guess for you, Matthew, as a guy who's gone through many a manager over the last few years, obviously hearing someone stepping away is not the biggest surprise for you. I think sometimes with Chelsea, it's more like the manager's still here. That's the surprise why they've gone. But looking across and knowing what Jurgen Klopp's done at Liverpool, how much of a rivalry he's had with Chelsea over the years as well, like how big has this news been for you?
I was like Mark on that Friday because my line manager is a Liverpool fan and like she didn't believe it, so I didn't believe it. And for this whole time I'm looking around seeing everywhere, I was like, rah, it's actually happening. Every source, I'm looking left, right and centre, social media, TikTok, I was just like, it's bad when I'm going on TikTok to go for my sources, but I just had to be sure. But yeah, it's just like, we've lost, I think, a big cornerstone of the Premier League, like an old, like not old school, not that, but just kind of a more like a type of manager you just don't see very often in the Premier League, especially in a club like Liverpool. Crying out for years after the things with Benitez, and then they had Dalglish, and then they had Hodgson. I think the order might be wrong. Then obviously Brendan Rodgers came real close with the SAS, and then just kind of languishing a little bit, and then he came in and just kind of gave him a lift up and bring not just the club but the culture around the club, the massive uplift that they needed, and making them competitive within 2, 3, 4 seasons. With the stock he already had was still good, and then he just gradually improved every single time, and they were along for the ride. And I don't think they got into a final within the first 2 seasons. I think it was the Europa League final or something. But there was just something a little bit different when he was there compared to other managers. It's just like his approach and who he is as a guy, and just the fact that he just comes off sometimes as a little bit unserious about the whole thing. He's a vibesy manager. He's a vibesy guy, and it tells a lot of the fact that he's he's in a rock. I'm not mistaken. He's in a rock band or something. In his spare time, he does something like that. Wouldn't expect like a busy up and coming Premier League manager to do something like that. Where you got other managers like your Peps who are so efficient and machine orientated. They're desperate to win. It's a refreshing thing to see someone like him that just approaches it in a completely different way. And you just don't get many managers like maverick, outspoken managers like him very often in any of the top leagues. So, as much as, secretly, very secretly, I'm happy he's going. I'm kind of sad as well because we're losing. Sports needs characters. It needs those people that get you talking, like from the back page. We had the likes of Mourinho. You had the likes of, say, your Henrys and feel like that. You had the people, we've got Chelsea, Arsenal, all these different clubs. Sports needs those kind of people that could go beyond the means of off the pitch. And it's when he goes, it's going to be a loss to us, for not just the Premier League, but just the football in general. And, wherever he goes, they're getting a good guy. They're getting a real good guy.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive loss to the league. I think the annoying thing is, Mark, we were talking about what the Premier League needs, and there was one manager that we were all desperately hoping would be the next one out the door. But unfortunately, he's still here. 115 charge later, he's still here. But on, just talking about that, because I think you raised a lot of great points there, Matthew, talking about what Jurgen Klopp did in terms of like the timeline of managers Liverpool have had. And Craig, you mentioned it as well, like this is like his 4th kind of squad and how he's revised it and revitalised it over the years. I guess with that, Marcus, what would you say then, looking back on everything, is, Jurgen Klopp's enduring legacy at Liverpool?
Yeah, look, when he came to Liverpool, we were languishing, like struggling. Had to put up with, you know, a couple of years of that man who talked about having great character all the time. You know, King Brendan, who, you know, with all due respect, Brendan Rodgers, you know, kind of had that youthful enthusiasm about him, and you saw that in the year with Suarez, Sterling, Sturridge, and you know when we finished second in the league, and it was all almost too youthful and too enthusiastic that Mourinho came in and tore him apart, you know, in the, you know, the tactics arena on that day of Steven Gerrard famously slipping, and cost us the title, and you know, I remember, you know, just willing him out of the door every week. And it finally happened after that draw in the Merseyside derby with Everton, and Jurgen Klopp came in 9 days later. And, you know, the buzz around the city, you've not quite seen anything like it. Like, you know, everybody was so excited, you know, the press conference, you know, they asked him what was his message to fans, and he said, you know, you need to turn from doubters to believers. Well, 9 years later, I'm a believer, fair play. Like, you know, this guy has taken Liverpool on a journey back to the big boy table and sat them back where they belong and said, hey, we are one of the biggest clubs in the world and this is where we deserve to be. This is what we need to do. This is the level that we need to compete at. We need to be throwing out title challenges. We need to be getting to Champions League finals. We need to be winning domestic trophies, you know, and he's won every trophy available to him apart from the Europa League in his first season, in which he lost in the final. So I think his legacy at Liverpool goes way beyond football, and the fact that he's been given the keys to the city, and you know he is a legend in the city outside of football. But I think his legacy in football terms at Liverpool is he is the best manager Liverpool have had since Shankly and Paisley, and Shankly and Paisley have brought so much success to Liverpool. You see them on all the flags, you see them on all the scarves, you see them everywhere. They are Liverpool's poster managers, and everyone has tried to kind of pitch their way towards that along the way. And Liverpool have a soft spot for Houllier, and he won the Mickey Mouse treble back in 2001. And, you know, Rafa won the Champions League in his first season, you know, after being 3-0 down to Milan at halftime, and will always be remembered in that chain. But Jurgen Klopp is the best Liverpool manager of the modern generation, and he's going to be some big shoes to fill.
There's going to be some massive shoes to fill.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely a man who is comfortably in Liverpool folklore as a legend, unlike boring Brendan, who will never be forgotten, but also never remembered either. Think about it. But I guess on that note for you, Craig, when you think about Liverpool as a team, you know, this is a club that's got a massive history, both like past days and also present days.
Yeah.
And you think about like how much Sir Alex Ferguson fought and wrestled to try and get that total titles number and put Man United back on top. That's look at your club now. That's the price you pay for that. But when you think about what Klopp has done at Liverpool, considering what he's been up against in the absolute machine of Guardiola and Man City, like, how impressed are you with him, and where do you kind of think we'll look back, and or even now as we reflect on his time at Liverpool, where do you think we're going to place him in terms of things?
I mean, ranking of manager?
Not necessarily ranking, but like, what would you say is like the thing that you look back on and think, okay, that's what I remember Klopp for at Liverpool?
I remember one game against Everton. It was 0-0 in the 90th minute, and Pickford made an error, and then Origi scored a header. That was a game-changing moment in that game. And I remember the Champions League final against Tottenham. Tottenham was 0-0, and then they scored the first goal in the first couple of minutes of the game. And then Origi came off the bench and scored the goal to kill the game. And there's a couple of games. There's a game against United, the 7-0 last season at Anfield, when nobody thought that it would be 7-0 game, but Liverpool actually destroyed Man United at Anfield. And Anfield is a hard place to go to, by the way, because Arsenal fans will know, like last season when we went there and drew 2-2 with them, That was one of the best games. Even Jurgen Klopp said that was one of the best games he ever played against Arsenal. And the one at the Emirates, he said, was the best game. The 3-2 defeat last season when they lost at Emirates. So it was the hardest games he ever played as a manager. I think what his legacy will be, he knows how to get the best out of players that are not being given a chance at other clubs or being discarded. Mo Salah, for example. Chelsea didn't think he was good enough. He went to Roma, went to Fiorentina. He made Klopp took a gamble on him, and it worked, and it paid off. Same with Mane. It was at Southampton. Not a lot of clubs were looking at him. Man United put a bid in for him, but he went to Liverpool and did the business. Same with Alisson as well. Alisson was at Roma. Nobody else put a bid in for him, and then he put a bid in for him. Same with Van Dijk. A lot of clubs were looking at Van Dijk as well. But Liverpool the ones who put the 85 million on the table and to take this, and he went to Liverpool. And the rest is history. Same with players like Robertson. Robertson, for example. Robertson was at Hull. Everyone got to remember Robertson was at Hull. Not one of the best teams in the league, but it was in the Championship. And Klopp gambled on him and he paid off. I could go on and on and on about players he bought from lower leagues, and he bought who's that guy, the midfielder? Played for Fulham. He used to play for Fulham. Harvey Elliott. He bought Harvey Elliott from Fulham, and look what he's doing in the first team. Curtis Jones. He bought a lot of like fringe players. He bought Jota as well from Wolves, on the business. Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo.
I love how you snuck Nunes in there, you know.
Well, Núñez will become good at Liverpool. He's scoring goals for fun now, so second season he's getting more used to, getting more confidence.
He's getting there.
He's getting there.
He's getting out of that Haaland shadow.
Yeah. Who else? He's bought some good players. Luis Diaz has been a good player from Porto.
Yeah.
Played against him in Champions League. Done well against Liverpool. Got the move in the January window. You know, he's hardly bought any bad players who you would say he wasted money on players, and
we'll get on to that.
Well, most of the players he's bought for Liverpool.
One or two.
There's a couple.
One or two.
Well, some of the players he bought for most of the players I've named there, they've been successes at Liverpool so far. The ones that he didn't do well with, we'll talk about later. But other from that, I think if to rank him as one of the best managers at Liverpool in a modern era, I think one of the best. He's up there with like Shankly and Paisley, as Markus said. I think he's better than the other managers Liverpool had before, and he's done a great job competing against Man City as well. The great Man City juggernaut. He would have had more titles if Guardiola wasn't in the Premier League. That's a fact.
Well, if the Premier League can figure out, the timeline to get some of those charges actioned, maybe he might have a couple more. Just saying. No pressure, but some of us, anyway. Patience is running thin. But I guess on that note, Matthew, what's a memory of Jurgen that sticks strong in the mind for you from the many encounters at Chelsea?
With Chelsea, well, there was that time when, I think the first time we played, the season we won the league, when Jordan Henderson called that looping goal from all the way out and all the way in. That was a bit of an embarrassment. Luckily, we won the league in that season. There was the 2-2 when they went 2 ahead and then we came 2 back. Scrappy game, but a really good game. There seemed to be, I think, the Liverpool-Chelsea games with Klopp, sometimes they float under the radar, particularly with the Arsenal games and the United games. We have had some saucy games, and even though they don't necessarily go in our favour, it's a good kind of matchup against, consistent managers like likes of Sarri, with Conte, with Tuchel, not with Lampard, and with... even with Poch in the first game of the season, it was a great opener for two teams that had a lot of point to prove after really poor seasons, either side. And coming up, there seems to be like an explosiveness that kind of sometimes comes out when we play. I mean, we had a couple of duds last year, ball draw 0-0s. I fell asleep, and then I woke up again, and again when I finished, I was disappointed, so fell back asleep again. So I won't take that from their back to legacy. So we've had some fun games. Weirdly enough, my favourite Liverpool games have nothing to do with Chelsea. They don't. 2 of my favourite games. One of the first ones in the Premier League was the one when they first played Juggernaut City in 2018 with the 3-1, and Salah just gets a goal up over Ederson's head, and there was just a madness, a frenzy that every time they got the ball, they bomb forward. No matter what, bomb forward. It's like they go work up for breakfast, bomb forward. Reverse a car, bomb forward. forward, every single time. Couldn't keep it eyes like tennis. And one of my other favourite games was when they went the second leg Champions League after Lord Messi scores the free kick of all free kicks. No one expected them to turn it around 4-0. And it wasn't so much the scoreline, it was the players that scored. It weren't no big timers. It was your fringes, like your dogs, like, your hard workhorses. What is it? Origi. Was it? Did Wijnaldum score one as well?
Yeah, Wijnaldum scored
They
one.
scored two. Well, yeah, it wasn't even no big time headline man. It was guys who knew what they had to do, and for the team though, like proper team fringe players. Clutch man, Origi, clutch man, turn it around. Great. It was, and the turnaround was just immense. Obviously, when I go on to win the Champions League. So those are two kind of memories in mind. But I think one of my favourite Chelsea's one was probably the one we had to start the season. Especially with like a case of redemption for both clubs, and genuinely one of the most even games that you're going to find in along many places. If either team, and we both agreed on this, if either team had taken the 3 points, would have been like, that's fair. But it was a great game, absolutely fantastic game, and going to miss having those encounters, that kind of just utter explosiveness sometimes. So no, man, good times, man, good times.
Before I get into the next part, which is a really nice question, I think, especially for Mark to reflect upon, I got to throw this at both of you. Actually, everyone's got to answer this question. I'm going to start with you, Matthew, then work around. So,
Go on then.
Brendan Rodgers bottling the league, or Frank Lampard's entire time at Chelsea as manager, which one was worse?
It's got to be King Brendan, innit? Because they had a chance to win it though. When he was there, they had a chance. They were this close. They were that close. And then, Agent Gerrard did his thing. Didn't help us exactly, but still. So it was just because, I think it's going to be that, because for the time being, they were saying, for the first time in 20 odd years, they're going to do it. And then, as bad as Lampard was, he had no money to spend really, and most of the time, did anything of him. Well, no, I certainly didn't. So sorry, Mark, King Brendan.
Right.
It's to be Brendan Rodgers, but it wasn't the Chelsea game that cost them. It was the Crystal Palace game. No, everyone forgets about that Crystal Palace, that 3-3 draw.
3-3,
No, everyone forget. If they'd beaten Crystal Palace that night, they go on to win the league. 100% they win the league. I think after that game, their confidence was gone, and then they went to the Chelsea game in emotions.
Yeah, because they were chasing the Crystal Palace team. They didn't need to.
No, they were 3-0 up.
They were just chasing more goals.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then the other game, the Man City game, they beat Man City at home when Coutinho scored that screamer. So they could have won the league that season. So I'll have to say Brendan Rodgers.
Mark, for you, Rodgers or Lampard?
Yeah, definitely Rodgers.
Full house.
The thing about it though is, if Brendan Rodgers was the first man to bring a Premier League title to Liverpool, it would have been quite devastating, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. Like, at the time, we were so desperate for it. Like, I was devastated when we didn't win that title. But, now we're looking at it, 10 years, 11 years later, I'm like, I'm so glad that man didn't win the Premier League title. I think obviously, Frank Lampard is still trying to figure out what his career after football is, and I think we all see that every single day. And I have a real soft spot for Frank Lampard. I think he's such an interesting character, and every time I hear him speak or do a podcast, I'm like, man, I like this guy. He really makes it seem like he knows what he's talking about. But it's clearly not translated, into his management in any way, shape, or form. So, good luck to him. Good luck to him in his next job.
No, indeed. Good luck, Frank. I hope you do find something soon. Obviously, there's a vacancy
Chelsea
coming
job.
up in Anfield, but you're not eligible, so don't bother applying. But you never know. Maybe if things don't work out. There's also Barcelona. You could go there. I've heard they're looking for a legend to come in and fix them, and you broke Chelsea, so they're already broken. So I feel like it's a match made in heaven, really. But on that note, I guess for you, Mark, when you look at Jurgen, there's been so many, as Craig said, he had that 98-point season. So many amazing highlights. For you, what was his best season, and what was your favourite match as a fan?
Yeah, I think his best season was the 2018-2019 season. we finished second in the league with 97 points, third highest point total in Premier League history, and then went on and won the Champions League. And there's a couple of things about that season that were quite stand out. Obviously Man City was exceptional, and fair play to them for getting across the line. But, just from a Liverpool perspective, Alisson kept 21 clean sheets in the league. Sadio Mane and Mo Salah was joint top goal scorer with Aubameyang, with 22 goals. We went 20 games unbeaten that season in the league, which is 6 more games than Manchester City went unbeaten. And we only lost 1 game in the entire season. Man City lost a handful, but they drew less than us. And the most incredible stat for me across that period was there was a point where in Premier League games Liverpool had won 103 out of 105 points.
Wow.
Oh.
Which it's just this type of level of football, from both City and Liverpool is unheard of in history outside of Guardiola at Barcelona. And I think you gotta give credit where credit's due. It is, and Liverpool have been for a short period of time, one of the best 2 teams to ever play in the Premier League, to ever play English football, and it is something in which has been an absolute joy to watch. Now, I'll give you 4 games that I think kind of epitomize my Jurgen Klopp era, and the first one was in the Europa League campaign where we went away to Borussia Dortmund and lost 3-1, and then we came back to Anfield, and Thomas Tuchel was the Dortmund coach at the time, and the magic of Anfield as we beat them 4-3, with a late goal from Dejan Lovren, the god that is, to take us through to the next round of the Europa League. And it just epitomised Anfield, it epitomised Klopp, it kind of epitomised that attacking, aggressive football. Even when you've lost the first leg 3-1, you're like, right, well, yeah, so what? Like, we got this. That was the first. The second then, or the others have all sort of somewhat been mentioned. The Man City game, in the Champions League, I actually would focus more on the first leg than the second leg, because the second leg, we went to Man City and we took some pressure, and then we managed to get up the pitch and nick a goal here or there. But that first leg, we were 3-0 up after half an hour. And Oxlade-Chamberlain scored an absolute screamer. Soft spot for Oxlade, boys. And we were 3-0 up, and Man City had a couple of chances, and we rode our luck a little bit with offside goal that Man City and Pep, complains about all the time. Twice. But yeah, look, to be able to hammer Man City so convincingly in the Champions League, I think was again another really enjoyable run. Then obviously the 2 that have been mentioned, that Klopp's probably best 2 games as Liverpool manager, 7-0 against Man United. Look, imagine beating Tottenham 7-0. Well, that's it. Like, enough said for both of you guys, right? Like, you put 7 past Tottenham, like, it's just that you make them into a laughing stock, and it's just a joy to behold. Like, and Bobby's last season for Liverpool, nice to see him score that 7th and go off dancing in the corner, and just to dominate Man United so convincingly, being like, we are the big boys in town. You're just little Man United. You're the second best team in Manchester, might even be the third best after Salford. That's a pure joy. But then obviously the greatest game of Jurgen Klopp's tenure, and the game that nobody will ever forget, is, as Matthew so rightly said, going to Barcelona, being 3-0 down. And I remember leaving that game being quite angry, like being like, how are we 3-0 down in this game? Like, we hit the post, we hit the bar, Barcelona got a lucky deflected goal that bounced to Messi, off the defender, and he tapped it into an open net. And then the greatest free kick I may have ever seen. And we're 3-0 down, and you're just looking at that game. And I remember the big moment where the ball went through and Ousmane Dembele was through in the 94th minute and missed an absolute sitter. And Messi went mad. Like, he was furious. Like, it's like Dembele's like, chill, man, we're 3-0 up, we're good. Like, but Messi knew you don't go to Anfield and get away easy. And then, we come to that night at Anfield, no Firmino, no Salah, playing basically Divock Origi, up front. And, Divock is like at the center of all of Jurgen Klopp's greatest moments, right? Like, you've got Jurgen Klopp's greatest hits featuring Divock Origi. Scored twice on that night. Like, the ingenuity from Trent on that corner was different level. Like, and, you turn around, the comeback to beat Barcelona, the mighty Barcelona, with the greatest player on the planet, 4-0 at Anfield with time to spare. Like, absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, greatest game. And there are so many more I could have spoken about. The Norwich game where Klopp broke his glasses. Like, there's so many moments in the 9 years. But yeah, there's a few.
He has definitely been a man that's provided many joyful moments. And I feel like the company 7-Up missed a trick, because they should have sponsored your tour training equipment this past summer. I feel like it was a free advertising opportunity to just get to do, because the memes were brutal, but wonderful. So, maybe they might do a repeat this season, because where our Ten Hag's going, it's not impossible. But I guess on that, you've mentioned a lot of players that have done really well, like Divock Origi. We've obviously heard about the Salahs, Trent with his amazing, in general, his set piece ability, his ability to kind of control and dictate games and just do things on a level where Gareth Southgate figure it out. I mean, we've said it on this podcast on numerous occasions, but when you have great players, you just make it work. Real Madrid, when they signed Beckham, I love watching that in the documentary, they talked about their team and their starting 11. It's like, well, Figo plays on the right. And Beckham's like, but I'm a right winger. And Figo's just laughing like, my guy, you're not bench. Just put him in central midfield. They made it work. So, Gareth, just find a spot for him. You can drop Maguire if needs be. We can play 3 at the back and have Trent in the free role, just kind of, just a completely free role where you can start off at right back and drift into midfield if he wants to. But on that note, I'll start with you, Craig. Who's the best player that Jurgen Klopp has developed?
Ooh, that's only one.
I'll give you 2. It's really harder now.
I think Salah and Trent.
Salah and Trent. Matthew, best 2.
I only need one.
Okay.
That's Trent.
Mark, who are the best 2 players that Jurgen has developed?
Yeah, Salah and Trent.
Full house.
Unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes without showing. I mean, Mo Salah was, and I think I've seen some clips of his days when he was at Basel, but he's always had the potential to be a really good player. That's the reason why Chelsea signed him in the first place. But the transformation from the stuff he was doing at Fiorentina and Roma, like, he was scoring great goals, but the level of consistency that he's been doing at Liverpool, even when Salah's having a poor season relative to his own standards, is better than some players' lifetime best season. No, a couple of years ago, everyone said, "Oh, Salah's having a poor season. He's having." And I'm looking, and then you like, really? We go and check the numbers, and like, but Salah is behind Harry Kane in the league, and this is meant to be his worst season. Like, are we okay?
No, you're right. Everybody was like, Marcus Rashford's having the best season on the planet last season.
Yeah.
And Mo Salah had 10 more goals and assists than him, like, across all competitions.
Facts.
And everybody's like, Salah's been rubbish this year. Like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what does he have to do? Like, he has to get 40 goals and assists a season just to get average based on his current standard. Like that, the man's at a different level. Like,
it's crazy.
Different levels.
Bacon Rashford.
But Liverpool in a transitional season last season, let's be fair, they sold Sane, Mane left. So they were kind of transitioning for him to rebuild the squad in the summer. This summer gone. So obviously Salah her numbers were still good.
I mean, I think last season became a transitional season. I don't think you went into it thinking it's a transitional year. I think you went into it believing with the players you'd brought in, that you would be, have a much stronger season. It's unfortunate you got injuries, and I think injuries then changed the outlook. It's like, okay, well, we've got Van Dijk out, he's coming in and out, Matip in and out, Salah is doing well, but then, Nunes was still adapting, not quite firing. Thiago was in and out. Fabinho was playing like he aged 15 years in the off-season. Yeah. I've never seen a player go from being undisputed top 2 defensive midfielders in the world, and you could argue 1 or 2 between him and Rodri, and you could argue that till the sun goes down, and you would probably not really. It will keep changing based on different criteria. To go from that to being a player that Mohamed El Neni could get in ahead of him. That's how bad Fabinho was last season.
Facts.
That's how bad he was. Yep. You have gone from Rodri to El Neni. No, don't get me wrong. El Neni, every now and again, he'll score a wonder goal from outside the box, like he did this season. And he always does one good, great goal every now and again. But we all know he should not be playing for a top team. Respectfully, this is not his level. I like the guy. He's hardworking, does his bit, but there's a level. And Fabinho dropped himself to that level. And now he's off in Saudi making money and not even doing much out there. So a lot of things changed for Klopp. And I know also in the summer there was the conversation about whether he would even stay on. Because I think he was thinking about leaving back then. And I think his wife made him change his mind and stay. So that was nice. But he really it just wasn't a great season. And he did a great job because you still managed to get back into Europe. So it just goes to show he did something that some teams to my right still can't figure out. Even when you're having a poor time, just do your bare minimum. Just get in the European spots and figure the rest out in the summer. So I think that was really good. But when we say all of that, like we know there's been some incredible players he's worked with. He's done some good stuff. Last year was very tough. He had to move on players that he probably didn't. Maybe wasn't necessarily ready to move on in like Henderson, Fabinho, but it worked out to be for the right reasons. But for every great signing, there's always the counter side. For every Mo Salah, you get a flop. So Mark, give us a couple of names that you think are some flops that Jurgen has unfortunately been, not necessarily that he's like signed them, because I know you have a whole recruitment team, but players that have been brought in during Jurgen's era that should never have been signed to Liverpool.
I have 3, and I think, you asked the question in a way where you said, like, biggest disappointment and biggest flop as 2 separate questions, and I almost would merge them as one. That I think the 3 players I'm most disappointed with, I'm most disappointed with them because of the potential of what I expected in their performing at Liverpool. So we'll start with the third one, and we'll make my way up to my number 1 disappointment, right? So number 3 is Thiago, and I think because he came to Liverpool with such ability, and we all know how good he is and can be. But with the mix of injuries and then whenever he's played, like, I know he doesn't slow down the game, but it really feels like he does slow down the game. Like, and passing the ball backwards when he could be passing it forward, like, losing the ball and then pulling someone to the ground and getting a yellow card. And I'm like, this is a man who spent like literally 9 years and didn't give the ball away once in Bayern Munich. And I remember one time watching him give the ball away 3 times in 30 seconds against Chelsea. And I was like, what just happened? Like, literally, what did you do? Like, how have you gone from not giving the ball away in your entire career to giving the ball away 3 times in 30 seconds? Like, so I think Thiago I find frustrating because he really could and should have been everything that Liverpool needed in midfield, and he just wasn't. So that's number 3. Number 2 is again a little harsh, I think, maybe, but I think what he's producing now is evidence of the potential that was there, and that's Dominic Solanke.
I agree.
I think Solanke came so cheap that at the end of the day, you can't really be too upset when it doesn't work out. But there was always a player in there. Like, you just think, there's a decent player in there, but like, when's that decent player going to come out and do something? Like, it's kind of like Darwin Núñez. I know, like, he doesn't have all the attributes and qualities of Darwin Núñez, but it's the same sort of frustration that you're like, if you get your crap together, you have the potential to be exceptional or very, very good. And he's proving that at Bournemouth. Like, he's at his level, but he's starting to bang in the goals. And I think that is fair play to him. He's found his feet. It took some time. I think he went 30 odd games without a goal at Bournemouth, but and Bournemouth were patient with him. But I think there's a player who you look at and think, if Liverpool signed him, in Klopp's peak, you'd have thought Klopp would have been able to bring the best out of Dominic Solanke. Obviously he was already at Liverpool when Klopp came, and then left, quite early into Klopp's tenure. But I think that that would be another one. But the main one is obvious, I think, to everyone involved, and should be, because Liverpool have always been looking for a Steven Gerrard replacement since Steven Gerrard left, and this man had the ballsy confidence to walk into the club and say he's going to take his number, and you're like, all right, Stevie, like, we're ready for you. And I remember being genuinely more excited when we signed Naby Keita than I was almost anyone. You think, my goodness, this guy is such a talent. Like, there's so much ability there. He was so good at Leipzig. He's going to come into Liverpool's midfield and he's going to absolutely dominate. And I don't remember a game in which he did. Like, I genuinely can't remember. Like, he had moments, like glimpses, like he'd score a good goal or he'd take the ball and he'd run past a couple of people and you'd be like, oh, that's what he can do. Like, but, never had any more consistency than about a 7-minute spell in a 90-minute game 3 times the season. So I think he's the biggest flop for the amount of money spent, for the expectation. In my opinion, he would be number one.
Wow. Craig, any players that you would add to that list, or do those players tally up with you?
There's one winger that Liverpool bought and they sold him to Bournemouth. I can't remember his name. There's a winger. It was at Liverpool and they brought him to he went to Bournemouth. He's not playing now anyway. I think he's
Jordan Ibe?
Jordan Ibe.
Yeah.
He was a baller. He was a baller. Honestly, he was that good. And he didn't do well at Liverpool and they got rid of him. He had potential. He was very good. The centre back he bought, Nat Phillips. I thought that was a bit of a disappointing signing. I thought he would have done well.
I feel like when Nat Phillips, Rob Holding, I think Nat Phillips has done better for Liverpool than Rob Holding has for Arsenal, to be fair. I mean, Holding's won the FA Cups though, to be fair. He did cost us a league.
And who else? What was I say? Karius. Karius was a bad signing for Liverpool. Karius. I thought Markus was going to say Karius.
Or it's Carrot.
I thought Markus was going to say Karius.
Almost wiped him out of my memory.
Karius was.
Forget about Karius.
Karius gave my. I remember that Champions League final. He gave that the Gareth Bale goal he scored. He gave away 2 goals in that final, and cost Liverpool winning that Champions League. When Liverpool could have won that Champions League final, to be fair. If you had that's when the summer Klopp went and bought in Alisson, and after that in the summer he bought Alisson in after that final.
And then won Champions League.
And then won Champions League the following season. Yeah.
Matthew, who have you got?
Naby Keita, but for different reasons. So, Mark, you know how you were saying that he would only turn up for certain games? Do you know who those games were? You know who those games were?
Chelsea.
And I could not be happier to see the back of him, because there we go. That's a point we're getting back each way. And even then, he'd always, those goals, those bangers, who were they against? Exactly. I couldn't be happier to see a man go. It was like, you're good riddance. I'm sick of the sight of you. I remember one game, it was 5-3, and he tore us apart, man. He tore us apart. If it weren't for Giroud, it would be a cricket score, man. Giroud always used to have to give Van Dijk a bit of trouble, but nah, man. He'd only ever turn up for 2 games a year, and it happened to be Chelsea every single time. So when he went, But yeah, everything he said was right. He should have done more than the time he was there. But yeah, I don't miss him at all.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to name 2 players, I think one I'm going to name is, it may be a bit harsh on, well, actually, no, I'm going to got 3 players. First one, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I'm sorry, but for
I was thinking that.
Making that move from Arsenal to Liverpool, the whole point of it was that you're going to play more games, establish yourself as a central midfielder, and kick on from there. And I'm sorry, but like, as much as you might have had good moments at Liverpool, your best moments at Liverpool do not eclipse your best moments at Arsenal. So for me, as a player, I don't think he developed. Post leaving Arsenal, I don't think he developed at all. I think all that happened is Klopp was able to get the best out of him more consistently, but due to the fact that the guy was always injured, it just wasn't enough. And he's one I think it's a disappointment for me, because I think you make that move, then you should really establish yourself at that club. And, you know, unfortunately, you just injuries was a big one. Another one is Minamino. Because it's a player who I think when you signed him was super exciting. You know, when he went out on loan, I think he went out on loan to Southampton.
Southampton, yeah.
And he looks okay. He seems like he's finding his feet back. Comes back to Liverpool and it's just like, nah, this kid ain't it. And the third one, it might be a bit of a controversial one. Might be a bit harsh on the guy. But considering the fact that he's been able to play for big European teams, I think, to me, he is a player that has just been a big disappointment, and that's Emre Can.
Yeah.
Now, he did a job and he was serviceable, but you were at Dortmund, you were at Juventus, Liverpool,
Bayern Munich and its academy.
And you've just not, you know, I just think you're just average. You know? On the scale of declining Fabinho and Mo and Lenny, you're just kind of in between. You know? But yeah, I think that those are the ones I would go for. Now, of course, like I was listening to a debate on that TV, that radio station that I won't name, but they have black and yellow in their branding, so you should know who I'm talking about. They will say a lot of rubbish, but they were talking about the top managers in the Premier League history, and like where would Jurgen Klopp sit? And one of the presenters was saying that he doesn't think that Jurgen should be considered in that, which is ludicrous. But I guess for you, Mark, like where do you put Jurgen in the all-time Premier League managers list?
Yeah, like I've ranked my top 5, and you're not gonna like it. But what can you do? Look, I took some serious time to think about this, and try to think about the scope of everything that I would consider, and I think the top 5 are obvious. I think the order then of the top 5 is what's up for debate. I'm a Liverpool fan. Fergie's never gonna be the top of any of my lists. So, you know, that's just a fact. And you know, even taking my bias aside, I think this Man City team is the greatest team to play in Premier League history, and I think Pep Guardiola is the best manager the world has ever seen. I don't think anyone can eclipse him. I think what he did as basically a kid with Barcelona, like in his first full-time job, murdered Sir Alex Ferguson's teams. Like, you know, and everybody always says, okay, like, well, it'd have been good to see Pep's team go up against, you know, 99 Man United. Mate, Pep's team would have murdered 99 Man United. Like,
that's facts.
There is not a team as good ever as that Barcelona team, I don't think. Now, this Man City team, the thing that's so special about this Man City team is that, like, they won a Premier League title at a canter without a striker for 9 months, right? Like, you know, and then they got a world-class striker, and then they won the treble, and then they got 100 points, and they got 99 points, and like they just outstripped absolutely every record. And they, you know, Rodri, best defensive midfielder in the world, like Bernardo Silva, like I was having a debate with one of my mates at work, and he said Bernardo Silva is one of the top 5 midfielders in world football, and I basically laughed at him. And then I went away and thought about it, and I was like, nah, that boy's a baller, man. Like, he is literally performs at such a high level consistently for so long. I'm like, who else would be better than him, like, in the top 5? He would possibly be there. Like, fair point. Like, so Pep is number 1 for me. Fergie number 2. Right? Let's get that out of the way. I have nothing else to say about Man United, obviously. Right? So for me, I put Klopp as number 3. And the reason why is because I think that the levels that he's produced with Liverpool are higher than any of them other managers. I actually think the the levels that Klopp has pulled out of this Liverpool team over a 2 or 3 year period or 3 or 4 year period have been higher than even Ferguson. But Ferguson did it for 26 years, producing, so much success and winning so many titles. There's not a chance. But I think Mourinho and Wenger, who I have Mourinho 4, Wenger 5, are managers who have gone through periods where, they've had a couple of years where they've shone and shined, and then a few years where they've kind of gone into the abyss, and then shone and shined for another few years, and then kind of gone into the abyss. So I think, you could argue Wenger above Mourinho because he did it for longer, and I'd be happy with Wenger 4, Mourinho 5, because it was quite a bad drop-off at Tottenham for Mourinho, and that still impacts his Premier League legacy. But therefore, for me, Klopp's right in the middle, number 3. And I think that's because Mourinho and Wenger don't have the ability to say we've produced mid-90s seasons on multiple occasions. We've won everything that is out there to win. Mourinho, yes, but not at Chelsea. And I think obviously Wenger never won the good old big ears. So that's my evaluation, and interested to hear what you guys think.
Interesting. Craig, what's your thoughts? And what's your top 5?
Has to be Guardiola number 1, as Markus said. I'll say Ferguson 2. I think I'll put Klopp number 3 for what he's done, and I'll put Wenger 4, Mourinho 5.
Okay.
The reason I'll put Wenger ahead of Mourinho, as Markus said, Wenger was more consistent over a 20-year period at Arsenal, and he got us to the Champions League every season on a small budget as well. During the Emirates era, we didn't have a lot of money to spend. Mourinho had an open checkbook at Chelsea twice, 2 spells. So, and the thing with Mourinho's a 3-year manager. Wenger was never a 3-year manager. After 3 years, Mourinho kind of goes into the absurdity where he doesn't do well. He just struggles. Wenger always knew how to do well in adversity. He always has to sell his best players, always know how to rebuild. He rebuilt at Arsenal maybe 10 or 11 squads during this time at the club. So I have to give it to Wenger at number 4, yeah.
Matthew?
I think the original order he had was correct. I think it's a case of you don't just put it down to trophies, you bring it down to what the people did to the areas around them. Like Pep Guardiola has drastically changed Man City in the last 10 years, let alone in the last 5 years. Relentless Fergie and all that time, he was the one that coined their hair dry treatment, had all those big egos in the squad, and he dominated all of them. With someone and with Klopp, he's come in, he hasn't had as long, but he's changed the culture. He's had a whole different approach. His personality is different from any of the others within that top 5. With Wenger, you got the professor, you got the sophistication. With Mourinho, you've got the wind-up merchant, you got the character, you got the cartoon villain. With Fergie, you got a wield of an iron fist, and with Pep, you just got the machine, you got the tactician. Klopp isn't like any of those guys, but he knows how to mix with the best of them, and he's more like he's that cool kind of wavy uncle, even like a hippie-ish kind of dude, but he does things his own way, and he's not ashamed to kind of do it, and in a way makes kind of a little bit of a maverick in that kind of way. I think that top 5, I think the Wenger Mourinho thing is always going to be the one that's going to be up for the most debate, but it kind of depends on how you look back at their legacies, So with Wenger, and I think the gap's a lot closer than we think it is. And I think with Wenger is, as long as he was there, you always wonder what he could have done if he just pushed that little bit more for certain things. At the times, he said over 07, 08, should have won the Premier League then. You could argue 15, 16, should have won the Premier League then. When Klopp first came in, and, countless others, I might be wrong about how many others he could have won, but with what he did, with what he managed, with the bare minimum that he was provided, you can't say he didn't do well. Whereas, Jose Mourinho is like future, chaos, come gone, ain't staying for this. Where someone like a Wenger's more like a Russell Wilson, the dependability sort of thing. But you have to have those those 5 in the top 5. And I reckon the top 2 are non-negotiable in that order. 3, 4, and 5 is a little bit more wiggle room, but me personally in that order, I'll say that's pretty fair.
Well, I'm going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons. I mean, I agree with the top two. I think Pep and Sir Alex, I think that's sort of where you definitely put them, because what Pep's done over the time he's been at Man City is just absolutely ridiculous. And in as much as Ferguson was able to keep reinventing his squads and keep Man United competitive, there's just the way that Man City are under Pep, which is just unlike anything we've ever seen before. And it's forced Liverpool to be near perfect, and it's still not good enough. Whereas Ferguson didn't have to be perfect, and he was able to get titles. So even the fact that the first title Man City won, Man United had the title up until Aguero. So there's that. For me, the sticking, well, not the sticking point, the only change I'm going to make, because I think about the landscape of English football, what it was like in the sort of, actually from its inception to the treble winning season of United in 99 and the 98 or 97, 98 when Wenger joined, and how much nutrition, fitness, diet changed completely from Arsene's start at Arsenal. In fact, people used to ridicule him for the things he was saying, and even Ian Wright and Ray Parlour would say like, oh, and Lee Dixon, he's taking me our chocolate bars, I can't eat this, can't eat that, and just how much that focus on nutrition and health changed so much in English football as a whole and the world, but also like how he prolonged players' careers for so long. And when you think about the number of players that he signed who had minimal potential and how he maximized them and made them like top players. You think about players like Nasri, for example, who came in, tricky dribbler, but very inconsistent, and left Arsenal, a really good, accomplished player, and then went on one more stuff at Man City. You think about, Van Persie, who we signed as like a tricky young winger, and we turned him into one of the best strikers in football history, who will go down in the top 50. You can argue we're in the top 50. That's not my debate today. Obviously we can talk about the likes of Omri, Vieira, but putting those aside, like he had a track record of being able to pick up players from relative obscurity and develop them into absolute monsters. And you think about the nearly players, the likes of Diaby, Jack Wilshere.
Alex Son was a good player.
Yeah, there's so many players that you can think of that almost made it, but for injuries or but for other reasons, could have gone so far. Even Adebayor, when we signed him, the guy was a donkey.
Raw.
He was very raw.
Very raw.
And yet when he left Arsenal, there's a top Premier League striker. So for me, when it comes down to that top 5 debate, if you're going off it based on purely on trophies, medals, and like statistical stuff in terms of that, I would happily put Klopp third. When I think about the wider implication on the league, on players, on development, for a manager that was there for so long and how many players he was able to just take and make into something, I put Wenger third.
Papa Wenger third.
And then, I mean, if I could, I would have the two of them joint, Klopp and Wenger joint third, and then Mourinho last, because I think, like you said, his times at Spurs has ruined it. He should have known better. But also, I think, he should have been a bit loyal. Like, he should never go to Man United. That was just really stupid. He should have held out for a better job. And then going to Spurs, like, all good dreams go there to die. And Ange will learn very harsh in a few weeks or months' time. All dreams go there to die. So their motto is dare to dream, but that's all they do. Dream.
No trophies again.
No trophies again.
But yeah, I mean, I think we have been blessed in our lifetimes to have been able to see the shift in football from the almost like aggressive passion merchants early 90s to the introduction of the silken flare in the late 90s, early 2000s, into the Joga Bonito style football from the early 2000s through to 2008-9, into the what I will now call Klopp Pep ball, which is death by 1,000 cuts versus rock and roll football. And now we've got Arteta trying to do his own variation of death by 50 cuts, because we haven't quite got to 1,000. And then, and so it's just been fascinating to see how much the league has changed and football's changed. And we've been able to see great managers. You had the Wenger-Fergie rivalry, then you had the Wenger-Fergie-Mourinho rivalry, then it was the Mourinho-Fergie rivalry, then it was the Mourinho Klopp, then it was Klopp Pep because Mourinho just fell off a cliff. And then Conte popped in to try and make it a rivalry, but he didn't last very long. So, but yet Pep and Klopp and Pep and Klopp and Pep and Klopp. And even now, you've got potentially a three-way race between Pep, Klopp and Arteta, who's looking up like, that's the place I want to get to. And I'm knocking at the door, but until you bring home a big trophy, you're not having a seat. You're in the conversation, but the grown-ups are over there. You're here.
You're the child. Sit there, learn.
You're the young apprentice. You're talking. You're speaking up a good talk. But as far as they're concerned, it's like, my friend, until you get one of the two trophies that we've got,
Then
then
come talk to me after.
come talk to us. But right now, you're doing really well, young man. You're doing really well. On that note, we are going to go on to the last two big points for this episode, special episode. So there's been a lot of talk about who could come in next. And obviously I mentioned Lampard jokingly. Obviously he is a free agent, but listen, Frank, don't even bother replying. Like, I'm rejecting you on Liverpool's behalf. But Mark, for you, looking at it realistically, and obviously I know that a long time ago, Gerrard would have been the dream scenario when he, was doing well in the youth academy, had a great run of it at Rangers, made the mistake of going to Aston Villa and having egg on his face, and now he's stuck in Saudi Arabia on a ridiculous Supermax contract. But who is your shout for the potential, looking at what the newspapers are saying, how would you rank those people in terms of what names have been suggested as Klopp's replacement?
Yeah, look, this is an area, obviously, since Friday and, finding out the news, all sorts of things start to come out and, you're kind of looking and thinking about it. So I've basically gone to Sky Bet's list and there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 managers on that list. So I thought, I'll present them. We can talk through these options. And then I have an 11th that isn't on the list who I would love to be the next Liverpool manager, who I think is a reasonable candidate and probably would come to Liverpool, but is nowhere in the conversation. So it's probably not going to happen. So that's kind of the approach. So I think the obvious starting point is where everything is, which, is, if Gerrard was the heir to the throne, 2.5 years ago, the new heir to the throne is Xabi Alonso. And I think, he is the overwhelming favourite for the Liverpool job at 2 to 5. And he has done an incredible job so far at Leverkusen. He came and took over them when they were in the relegation zone and moved them up the league and has not lost a game this season so far as Leverkusen sit top of the Bundesliga. And, the thing about Xabi Alonso, right, is, look, if he's going to be a flop at any point, which might be the case, we're still yet to know, he will do so while looking and being absolutely classy on every level, because Xabi Alonso is like a don, right? Like, played for Real Madrid, played for Bayern Munich, played for Liverpool, won everything with Spain. As a footballer is exceptional, right? When he speaks, he's eloquent, he understands the game, he is knowledgeable, he speaks in about 50 million different languages. Like, the guy is like so intelligent. And the question was always, would all of that translate into being anywhere near a half decent football manager? And he sits top of the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen, a team who don't have a star. Like, there's no superstar in that team. Bayer Leverkusen are not like at a point where there's one player that's carrying them. They have a handful of players that are contributing. Their fullbacks have got 5 goals and 6 assists this season, or there, above. Their centre forward, Boniface, is scoring a fair few goals. Wirtz is looking very, very, very tricky behind the striker. But they have a lot of players that are contributing. They're a team. They really are a team build. And I think Xabi Alonso is the overwhelming favourite. So I'd be interested in hearing on what you guys think about potentially Xabi Alonso being the next Liverpool manager.
A few?
He's strong. I mean, he's in a league where at the moment he's leading. He's not lost a game, like Mark said. And, you have to remember the fact that, without a big star, he's ahead of a team that does have a very big star, and then for the first few months was doing nothing but score for absolute fun. That's in Bayern Munich. I mean, to be ahead of a team like that with a Harry Kane in scintillating form, and you're still at the competitive right end of the Bundesliga, and hopefully breaking that duck of being a team not being Bayern Munich winning a Bundesliga, he has to say that he's doing something right, because that team's doing what all good teams that are going for a trophy are for. They're all mucking in. It's not just coming from a one-trick pony. There's literal threat from every single part of the pitch. Bit like what you were doing from last year. You had goals coming from everywhere. You were blowing teams away left, right and centre. The first 5-10 minutes, you had 2-3 how many goals? I mean, I'm not keeping up with the Bundesliga massively, but that's what that's the kind of trajectory I'm getting, is that they're all mucking in, and they're just trying to get their way into the end of the season. Because what you don't want is them to drop off so hard that they're first after all this time, after all this hard work, to then drop off to be like, say, second or third with a massive deficit. But you can't argue with the legacy of Simon at Liverpool. He was there when they won the Champions League. I think he's won pretty much everything. He's won at most clubs. And at Spain, you're talking a guy with accolades and someone who commands respect and you're going to listen to. And that pretty much any other, if you were going to name a club and you could have him in the midfield, you're going to say yes. There is no real of a downside right now for him not to go, nor be a candidate at least. So, Xabi Alonso is definitely one on my list, definitely.
Before Craig answers, what's really interesting about this coming season, Kingsley Coman has won a trophy in every season of his career to date. Harry Kane has not won a trophy in any season of his career to date. One of those records will be broken this season. And so far, it's not looking good for Kingsley Coman. But Craig, who's your shout? What do you think about that shout about Xabi Alonso?
I rate Xabi Alonso as a very good player. Arsenal could have got him when he was at Liverpool. Before he went to Madrid. I think Arsenal, Wenger was looking at him. I've always rated him as a great player. He had a great partnership with Steven Gerrard at midfield when they won the Champions League, and in 2005 that was a great midfield. I think Benitez made a big mistake letting him go, trying to get him Gareth Barry at the time. I was a bit like, I don't think so. No disrespect to Gareth Barry, but Alonso was just levels. One of the top 10, top 5 Premier League midfielders of that time. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a great coach. He's getting better out of Xhaka this season in Bayer Leverkusen. He's got good players like Frimpong. He's got Wirtz as well, good midfield player, German midfield player. I think they got a good team. I think they're definitely going to win the league this season. I think the Bayern monopoly of them winning every year is going to end this season.
I agree. I think it definitely is gonna collapse. But I do back Xabi Alonso for that job. I think he's definitely one that will be a good candidate. Who else is on the list that they've got?
Yeah, look, I think the thing about Alonso, just quickly, is that he does something that none of the other managers on that list do, which is you're replacing a manager who has won the city, right? Like, you won the heart of the city, and it's going to be hard to replace a manager that has had such success and won the heart of the city. Now, Xabi Alonso is already a Liverpool legend. Like, we absolutely love that man. He understands the club. He understands the culture. He's gone and, gone on to great things. And I think as Craig said, I think a lot of Liverpool fans felt like he was hard done by being pushed out of the club at the time that he left. And obviously what he went on to achieve in his career is evidence of, the fact that Gareth Barry ended up at, Everton, for a while. And then at the same time as Xabi Alonso playing in a Madrid midfield of Modric and Kroos, right? Like, I think that tells you all you need to know about that. But like, he would already win the hearts of the fans right away, and there'd be a level of patience with him, which I think would probably be needed. So that is one thing that I think goes in Xabi Alonso's favour. Right, to the rest of the list, I'm going to split these next few into two sections, and I'm going to let you pick the one that you find the most interesting, and each of you can talk about one of them. So second, 6-1 is Roberto De Zerbi. Also linked with a Barcelona job after Xavi announced he was leaving Barcelona the day after Jurgen Klopp. Clearly got some inspiration, Third on the list is Pep Linders, Jurgen Klopp's assistant manager, who has announced he's leaving the club as well and is going to be starting his management career. Fourth, he's 8-1, 12-1. Julian Nagglesman, who is currently the German national head coach until the end of the Euros. And then fifth, in this first section, is Tottenham's own Ange Postecoglou. I'll take Postecoglou and chat about him, and if you guys want to pick one of the other guys and chat about your thoughts on those.
I'm gonna talk about Ange, Mr. Mate. You know, mate. I think the good thing with him is that looking at what he has done at Tottenham, giving them a bit of credit now, he does seem to have galvanised a dressing room that lost their record goal scorer, their former captain, and also obviously Lloris as well, the captain, and it seemed to got them playing relatively well. And I think looking at the transition from Klopp, who's such a big personality and he's united the city as well as the players so well, I think he has the personality to be able to come in and not be intimidated by his legacy and almost be like, well, okay, I'm here now. I can kind of chart my own path and not feel like I'm living in Klopp's shadows. So I think he could do really well in the job. I don't know if he would be able to deliver you trophies though. That's my only caveat, but I do think he'll do an okay job and role in the job. Craig, who are you taking from that list?
Nagglesman. Nagglesman, he done well. He did okay at Bayern. Did well. I think it was at Leipzig, wasn't he? It was at Leipzig.
Yeah.
I think he done well at Leipzig. Then he got the big move to Bayern. Didn't work. He won the league at Bayern, and then it didn't work out. Didn't win the Champions League, and he got sacked.
There's also the ethical stuff
Yeah.
off the pitch which got in the way.
I feel like he's not the right. I don't think he's the right fit for Liverpool right now in his career. He's too young. I think he needs to go and manage again at a club, gain more experience and more knowledge, and try and win some trophies. Maybe in the future, further down the line, in maybe 5-10 years or so, maybe you can get a big job like a Liverpool job, I would say.
Matthew, who are you discussing and what's your thoughts on them?
I'm going to go with De Zerbi. I think he's done a fantastic job at Brighton. He's outspoken in the way that's different to Jurgen Klopp. He doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that gets too caught up in the whole midst and the drama of the football. I think he's a very focused, very pragmatic kind of guy, and he plays a good brand of football. Again, like Ange, I don't know how many trophies he would bring, but I do think the standard of football would be very, very good. I think you'd go through that era where it's like just saucy football, where like a bit how what you were when with Wenger after like a couple of years at the Emirates, where it was just entertainment, pure and utter entertainment. And he has shown that he can progress in a cup somehow. He got to this FA Cup semi-final last year, and they're still very much in the Europa Conference or somewhere this year. So he does know domestic type competitions, and he also does know European competitions. So I think it's not a stupid shout at all to go for De Zerbi.
All right.
Yeah, look, I think Postecoglou is a really interesting shout. I think if he hadn't have already gone to Tottenham, because I'm not sure he will leave Tottenham after 1 year for the Liverpool job, and partly because I also think that the only way that would happen is if Liverpool threw all their eggs in the basket and said, look, you're our number one target, and I don't think that's going to happen. But I think he is a big character, as you said, Clive. I think he would fit the bill well as a big character in replacing Jurgen Klopp. And out of all of them ones on the list, outside of Xabi Alonso, in that first half, he's the one I would be most interested in. It still baffles me that Julian Nagglesman's only 36 years old. Like, I don't know how that guy is still only, literally 5 years older than me, which is baffling to me, for what he's done in his career. So I think it will work out for Nagglesman eventually. And I think whoever is the club that takes that risk on him when he's figured all his, coming into training on a wheelie, wheelies, shoes, and all that jazz. When he's figured all that stuff out and kind of matures into the manager that he wants to become, I think there will be a club that will, it will click and they will really benefit. And I don't know if that will be Liverpool. I don't know if it will come too soon, as you said, Craig. Right. Look, on to the next 5, the last 5 on the Sky Bet, odds, and then I'll talk about the one man who I would give the Liverpool job to in a heartbeat. So 14-1, we have Amorim from Sporting Lisbon. 16-1, we have Thomas Frank from Brentford. 20-1, you've got Steven Gerrard. Another 20-1, you have Unai Emery. And then
good evening.
A final 20-1, you have Xavi Hernandez. So
No. You see,
pick your poison.
I'm sorry, Sky are bugging. Xavi. He shouldn't. Look, they would have been better off putting Zinedine Zidane on that list, because at least then there's you can kind of Champions League winner, world class player. It makes sense. Xavi, look, he needs to go back to the junior team to relearn a few things. That's not to knock him. I think Barcelona is a mess, but that club's culture, and you weren't able to translate the success you did with the youth team into the main team. You had your time managing in Qatar. Yeah. Anyway. Craig, what manager you want to talk about on that list? You mentioned good evening, so you might as well go there.
Emery. I think Emery could do a good job at Liverpool, I know he had a big job at Arsenal, didn't work out, but I don't think he was given enough time at Arsenal, to be fair. Well, not saying I want him back, but I think he's done what, he's rebuilt his career. He went to Villarreal, won the Europa League at Villarreal, came to Aston Villa, transformed Aston Villa from relegation candidates to challenging for the title this season, or top 4 this season, if you want to say. I think he could do a good job at Liverpool, but is he the type of manager that Liverpool fans would want to improve? I asked him shot the question back to Markus. Would he be the type of manager that Liverpool fans would give time to, or would you want someone like a De Zerbi or a Xabi Alonso?
Yeah, I think Unai Emery falls into the Rafa Benitez type kind of mold at Liverpool, which is kind of like, we'll love you when you prove it sort of mold.
Yeah.
I like Unai Emery. I think he's a good coach. I think he's done a brilliant job at Villarreal. I think he's doing a brilliant job at Aston Villa. But I'm not convinced that he would necessarily be, even like I say, in the top 3 or 4 candidates. But man, the guy's doing a fantastic job at Aston Villa and has shown that he can compete with the big boys, competed with Man City and actually played Man City off the park. That's been the most dominant performance I've ever seen against Manchester City, the Aston Villa performance this year. So yeah, I think that's kind of where my thoughts are. He would fit into the kind of Rafa Benitez mold. It would take time for the fans to buy in, but the Liverpool fans are patient enough usually. We don't go through managers like our Chelsea. We let our managers lie, and we give them time, and even if we're not sure that they're the right man for the job, we get behind them. But I do think like you said, Alonso, De Zerbi, Nagglesman, Postecoglou, they all are much more attractive prospects than maybe the likes of Unai Emery. But Matthew, I'm sure you want to talk about your Brentford man.
I do. Thomas Frank from last year is a better shout, but for Thomas Frank from this year, it's too outside. Like way too outside. I think he's always going to be a very good manager from when he first arrived in the Premier League, and he made Brentford very hard to beat. I think when you first played them, I think that was at Anfield or the G-Tech, I can't remember. They match you tit for tat. You scored, they scored. You scored, they scored. It was like 3-3. I think at one point, I think they were ahead for a bit, and then you got in and scored the last minute goal. So he knows how to make a team that's difficult and stubborn to beat. They were knocking on that Premier League for a very long time and finally got up there. and you could almost call them Premier League established. They're struggling a little bit this year, granted, with Tony being out for so long. And I think at one point we said that if it wasn't Pep winning manager of the year, we would have had him, just for what they had, the very little he had to work with and working with her. But there's a community sense around Brentford, and I think he understands that. And I think it's the same thing with Anfield as well. It's not just the fact that they're competing with the big Galacticos. There's very much a community kind of set up with this club at Liverpool, what it means to the people, what the G-Tech means to the people. I just think when it came to, again, he would make out... I question if he changed too much at Liverpool for what you want. At the end of the day, you still have that homely feel, but at the end of the day, you still want to compete. You still want to go out and go out there and win things. And he's done reasonably well at Brentford, keeping them afloat. They haven't unfortunately moved on to, where they'll be with like injuries and stuff like that. But I think last year's Thomas Frank would have been a better shout than this year's Thomas Frank. Well, that's no disrespect for him. They're just in a very difficult, they're in a odd spot with their squad and their players and that. So it's going to be, it's a fringe of the fringe. You wouldn't be bringing home trophies for like a bit, I don't know, but I see why he's there. I get why. I get why he is there. I 100% get that. And I think that if he were to go to another club, it would be somewhere else in like the Premier League. I mean, maybe like a Crystal Palace or something. I think he'd do wonders there. So, yeah, very fringe, very, very fringe kind of choice.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes. So you, Mark, from those final options, so who are you leaning on to be the likely one that you prefer?
Yeah, look, I think if you guys remember anything from my management rants on this podcast, there is only one man who I would want to be the next Liverpool manager. And look, he's not on any of the lists and he's not likely to be the next Liverpool manager. But the reality is that when you're making a judgment on who should be your manager, you have to go by the amount of hair they have on their head. And that is, at its center, when Pep's not available, who's your next bet? Man, you thought it was Ten Hag. They tried it. It's not quite worked out. But no, for me, the number one candidate, if I was determining who would be the next Liverpool manager, would be Arne Slot. The success he has had at Feyenoord is unreal. He, won a league with Feyenoord by spending half the money that Liverpool have spent on Dominic Szoboszlai on his entire team, and managed to beat big boys Ajax to the league title. Anytime there's been any real success in Holland outside of Ajax, Arne Slot has been your man to identify, and I think he is worthy of the step up. He turned Tottenham down, when and about 5 or 6 managers turned them down, and then Postecoglou finally got the job. And I think his football is phenomenal. I think the way Feyenoord play, the style, it fits what we would want at Liverpool. But I also think, at this stage, when you're looking at the lists of names that are being linked, I think Xabi Alonso is the most likely to be the next Liverpool manager. And I think, outside of that, I'm looking at Postecoglou thinking, yeah, I'd quite like that. And I wouldn't be too upset with Nagglesman. But the thing that is unique about this search compared to 9 years ago when we was looking for a new manager and we hired Jurgen Klopp is that there was no doubt that Jurgen Klopp was going to be a success. There was no doubt that he was the right fit for the club. And there was no doubt with really a handful of candidates that Liverpool was looking for. There weren't a lot of risk there. Ancelotti was the next in line for the Liverpool job at the time, and as Ancelotti 9 years ago, one of the best coaches in world football, and it was only the fact that he had the time out because he had the operation that in the end he wasn't considered at the time, and Klopp, jumped him to the gun. But I think Ancelotti or Klopp at that time would have been phenomenal options for Liverpool manager. There isn't a manager on this list without risk. There's not a world-class manager out there that Liverpool can hire and we're like, this is going to work out, this is an absolute guarantee. Liverpool have gone to the top of the mountain, and whoever takes this job is going to have to put his own footprint on it and start climbing up that mountain again. There's no obvious guaranteed path to success here. And Xabi Alonso strikes me a lot like Arteta, that Liverpool would probably have to be patient and give him a couple of years and let him find his feet and let him find his place and let him find his voice and his style and, make some mistakes and figure some things out as he goes. But there is the potential for one of the best young managers in world football there. So, maybe you take that gamble, especially when there isn't a star, obvious manager out there. The most obvious star name, you already mentioned him, Clive, is Zidane. And nobody knows what style of football he plays outside of Real Madrid. And he just wants the French job. So, the reality is, if it's not today, it's tomorrow. He's gonna take that French job. So I actually think it could be after this European Championships in the summer he could finally get what he wants, and then that's why he's not mentioned. But that is the thing that strikes me the most about this as we look forward, that there isn't a superstar.
That is true.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be the massive food for thought that the Liverpool recruitment team, the board, have to consider as well. Maybe Jurgen might have some input into it. We don't know. We'll see how things go. But it's going to make for a very interesting decision. And we'll see what Liverpool end up doing come the end of the season. Obviously, there's a big game on the horizon. Arsenal versus Liverpool. Just really briefly, with this news in mind, what are we expecting as a possible outcome? And I'll start with you, Matthew, and I'll run for everyone.
It's the game on Saturday.
It's the game coming up. It's coming up.
It's coming up. Ooh.
Saturday, yeah. No.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a stalemate.
Cool.
It's going to be a fiery stalemate. I think there's going to be goals from either side, two there and two there, either side sort of thing. I don't think it's going to be you blew away Palace, which to be honest everyone's doing. And they blew away Norwich, which again they'd love to do as well. So I think you kind of meet in the middle where you're kind of coming back from cup competitions and just find that kind of Premier League form. The Premier League's in a weird spot because of all the breaks they've been having and stuff like that. So probably a game. I can see this being a draw, like a 2-2.
Okay, Craig, what you say to him?
3-2 Arsenal win, like last season.
All right, Mark.
I don't know. I think it's a big game. I think it's a big game. I think it's a big ask for Liverpool to go to the Emirates and win. I think Arsenal play scintillating football, and Liverpool can always be a little leaky at the back. So I would imagine Arsenal with Saka, Martinelli, will get the ball and they will attack and they'll be aggressive, and I've been very impressed by what I've seen of Arsenal. But at the same time, beating Liverpool is always tricky, and we showed that in our trip to Emirates in the FA Cup. And I think that we obviously will be doing it without Salah as well, but I think we have players that are coming into form. We are the form team in the league, and just make sure you don't give the ball to Jota anywhere inside the 6-yard, 8-yard, 12-yard box, because that man scores everything he touches at the moment. And you'll either get Darwin Núñez scoring a hat-trick or having 9 chances and scoring none. So depends on which Darwin shows up. But I'm gonna go 2-1 Liverpool.
That's right. I'm gonna go for Arsenal to just narrowly sneak it. I think that the Klopp news will galvanise the players. I think it's quite interesting that there's some journalists asked Van Dijk, what's his thoughts and plans at the end of the season. He's just like, I don't know, we'll see. Which has now put the cat amongst the pigeon. And my only concern with this news is that it could work in one of two ways. It could galvanise the squad and you guys go on a crazy run and you actually bring home a double of the Premier League and you actually could potentially a treble actually, because you are still in 3. Quadruple. So you could finally do the quadruple and one up on Slaphead. Or it could all capitulate and players could be like, well, you're not going to be here next season, so I'm just going to down tools and just whatever, innit? So it's a risky decision. Obviously, Jurgen knows why the club announced it now. They have their reasons. I just think it's very bizarre. It could be them signposting another manager say, look, by the way, this job's going to be available in the summer. So you never know. And it does feel a little bit like when Guardiola was signed by Man City and they announced it so early and Pellegrini was a bit annoyed. It does have that feel to it. Managers available, so you just kind of put the news out there. Apparently the club knew back in November, but how true that is, I don't know. Either way, thanks for joining us, episode 100. It's been an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to bringing you another 100 more, and we'll see what happens at the rest of the season as Klopp goes on his farewell tour at the Emirates. Guys, look, we're not doing no guards of honour. Save that for the summer. Be professional. Peace out.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.